This is a brand new Merida Scultura 7000 and it's probably the best value road bike you buy right now, and likely a road bike that most of you have not even considered, but I think you should. This bike offers a carbon frame, carbon wheels, wireless shifting and even a power meter for just over £4,000 and undercuts most of its rivals in its price range. So in this video, we'll find out where it's as good as it sounds on paper and whether it's a bike you should consider if you're in the market for a race bike this year. We'll go through the details, some likes and dislikes, and of course go for a ride and see how it performs and handles. Because I'm David and you're watching Just Ride Bikes. Let's dive in. The Scultura is the company's lightweight all-round race bike. They have a Reacto Aero race bike as well, but this new Scultura actually takes a few lessons from that Aero bike in the shape of the tube profiles, the narrow head tube, the truncated down tube, the fork blades and the dropped rear stays. And we have internal cable routing with an FSA SMR stem, and the cables, or the brake hoses I mean, go underneath the stem into the frame there. So nice clean front end. And being a mid-range model, this has what they call CF3 carbon fiber. It's their designation for the grade of carbon used in the frame. So on the top end frames, which the pros use, it's CF5. And the difference to us is the weight. And Merida may not be the sexiest or most desirable bike brand in the world, but I think it's a really smart looking bike. I personally like the shape of the frame, the size of the tube profiles. I do like the paint finish on this bike too. I think it looks really smart. So definitely a bike that I think punches well above its weight. What the bike lacks in desirability, it more than makes up for when it comes to value for money, and this is where the bike scores very highly indeed. And you get some very good equipment and parts for that price. Starting with a SRAM Rival Access group set, which I'm a big fan of. It works really well. A nice range of gears from the 48-35 chain set and a massive 10-36 on the back. So good for going up steep climbs and fast in a chain gang as well. The battery can be removed for charging, and in my experience, it's very reliable. And then we have a power meter as well, which is just amazing to see on a bike of this price. I remember when power meters cost £2,500 on their own, but here we are in 2023 with a £4,000 bike and a power meter. And that's great for a race bike like this. You can go and race this bike or use it for training or just trying to extract the best performance out of yourself when you ride for fun, but you want to use a power meter to train and ride more efficiently. So a real big thumbs up from me by having a power meter. And then it doesn't stop there. We have carbon wheels, the company's own 45mm deep carbon wheels, and a high quality GP 5000 tyre from Continental. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you have integration of the cable routing through that stem. There's no carbon handlebar, so something had to give at this price point, but we do have a carbon seat post. This is their own S-Flex design with a shape and layout design to allow that saddle to flex back and forth more when you're riding along rough, bumpy roads for a bit more comfort in the saddle. And the price and equipment definitely shines even more when you look at other bikes in this category. For example, a Canyon Ultimate with the same group set and a better carbon handlebar and stem is actually less money, but you don't get carbon wheels like you do here. And then there's a giant TCR Advance, which is quite a bit more money with the same group set and the company's own carbon wheels and their own power meter. And then it's much cheaper than a new Specialized Tarmac SL8 with the same group set. So compared to those three very popular bike brands, the value and equipment here is absolutely amazing. So if you're complaining about bikes being overpriced and you don't get much for your money anymore, there we go. This is a bike that definitely bucks the trend. But what is a bike actually like to ride? Well, let's hit the road and find out. Righty-ho, let's see what this bike is all about. I'm riding a 35-kilometer loop that I use for all my test bikes. Some nice climbs, descents, switchbacks, and some rough roads, and a few smooth bits of tarmac, but mostly poorly maintained rough roads. A good test for a bike like this. I got a power meter on the bike as well, so I can see how my effort compared to other bikes as well. So, and actually having a power meter on a bike of this price is a really smart decision and really improves the value for money compared to other bikes at this price point. Because if you're racing or you're trying to train as effectively as possible, then you need a power meter. It's now much more accessible and much more affordable, and to get a power meter on a bike costing just over £4,000 would be unheard of 5 years ago. A bike of this price will never be a featherweight, and you do feel the weight when you pick it up and lift it out the front door. And when you actually ride the bike, the weight isn't really that big an intrusion into the quality, and it hides the weight really nicely underneath the great performance, handling and comfort it offers. So I'm not saying it rides lighter than it actually is, but it doesn't feel a heavy, sluggish, slow bike. It actually feels really fast and really sprightly. And I've been riding some lightweight bikes recently, like Tarmac, that Factor, and riding a bike, well, it doesn't feel like a heavy tug. It feels really good. And I have said in the past that weight isn't everything, and I stand by that. And yes, it's nice to see a bike getting lighter and lighter, but weight shouldn't be the sole focus of your buying decision. The all-round performance of this bike, the handling, the geometry, the gears, the brakes, comfort, combined to create a really nice package that I see being great for somebody keen to get into racing, or just keen to have a race bike for blasting around their local roads at the weekend. And when you reach your climbs, you've got all the range from SRAM Rival Access, that massive 1036 cassette on the back, which I love. And with the 4835 chain set, it's a great combination. Plenty of high end for racing, high speed antics, but gives you the low gears you really need for riding at mere mortal speeds. That's the climb coming up. Thanks Wahoo. And that gearing really helps the bike to be a good all-rounder. Racing, yes, but sporties and just smashing around your local roads on a weekend. Blimey, really got some Belgian weather today. The wind is whipping across the road. A nice light spray of rain, quite refreshing actually. There needs to be a but to all of this, but even the comfort, it's really good. We have some nice high quality 28mm wide Conti GP 5000 tyres. It's a shame they're not tubeless and have inner tubes, but I'm running about 60 psi for my body weight, and the comfort, the ride quality is really good. And they definitely help to deal with the rough roads. So a really good tyre choice by Merida. Not cutting corners, skimping on a tyre. So one less thing to worry about upgrading, which you often do even at this quite hefty price point, it has to be said. We got the supposedly comfort improving seat post on the bike, and if I bounce up and down, I can feel it moving a bit, but I don't really notice it generally, and doesn't seem to be as effective as the Canyon VC LS, which I use on an enduro race. So not as comfy, not as smooth as that seat post, but it is a race bike, not an endurance bike. But even though it's a race bike, the comfort is really good. It's a really smooth riding bike, and I would put the comfort of this bike in the same category as a Specialized Tarmac or a Giant TCR Advance, which are two very smooth riding race bikes. So good comfort. The space go wider, up to 30. The fit, geometry, all very good. Very similar to other race bikes like a Tarmac or a TCR or a Trekkimondo. So quite long, quite low, great for getting in a nice aero tuck position or getting the drops and smashing along. We've got quite a big stack of spaces underneath the stem, which I will remove. But yeah, the fit, handling, the way it steers, corners, all very good, all very predictable. No real alarm bells on that front. Nice short wheelbase, so it changes direction very easily, all very agile. And it's pretty easy to ride at slow speeds and over longer distance as well. It's not super twitchy. The steering quite fast, perhaps. It's no endurance bike, it is a race bike after all. So nothing out of the ordinary there. I think I should have worn my rain jacket today. getting quite damp through my long sleeve jersey. I think summer, if that's what you call summer, might be over. Sad days. So the bike rides very nicely indeed, very little to find fault with. But there are a few things on the bike which I don't like, which I'll share with you now. There's a multi-tool underneath the saddle here, which is kind of neat. I get the idea. So you always have a tool, quite tricky to get out, on the bike whenever you need it. But the downside is it makes it really tricky, almost impossible to fit a saddlebag. So where on earth are you supposed to fit your inner tubes, CO2 canisters, tyre levers and stuff like that when this is taking up all the space? So nice idea, but a bit flawed in my experience. The FSA stem is very neat in how the brake hoses go underneath into the frame there, and you can remove these spaces to reduce the stack, which I would do if I was buying the bike. But the stem is a very chunky, quite ugly design, a big chunk of metal. And then we have a round handlebar, which I actually like for ergonomics, but it's not as smart a handlebar and stem system as you get on a Specialized or a Canyon, for example. So nice, but not perfect. It's great to see a high quality tyre in the Continental GP 5000 on a bike of this price, because you all too often see tyres which are a bit crap and a bit rubbish on bikes, even at this price, which is still a lot of money. So a high quality tyre is a great thing to see. It's a shame, personally, that they aren't tubeless. I think that would be a nice move, a smart move, but the clincher, so they're fine, but for me, I would rather have a tubeless tyre. I think that would be the icing on the cake for this bike. I love the fact you get a carbon fibre wheel set on a bike of this price, because as I showed earlier, they are usually aluminium, or you have to pay more money for a carbon wheel set. So that's a great start, but it's a shame they're not a bit wider. They measure 19 millimeters internally, which by today's standards, modern standards, is a bit narrow, especially when paired with a 28 or 30 mm wide tyre. So in summary, it's an easy bike to recommend, definitely one to shortlist. Great equipment, and it rides really well too. I'll put a link to their website down below in case you want to check out this bike and other models in the range. Hopefully you enjoyed the review. Got any questions, put them down below in the comment section as always, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below, and I'll see you all again next time. Thank you so much for watching. But for now, I'm off for another ride on a lovely sunny day.